And what, can you just give me your name and what the shop name is?
No.
Alright, never mind.
I'm a ghost. My name is Mason Atlas, and the shop that I'm talking about today is actually my shop. Yeah, The Hive, SLC, over here in Mill Creek, Utah,
Cool.
Salt Lake City. Area code 84109.
Yeah, there you go. Now people can. Okay, and we're rolling.
I wanted to talk about the differences between how shops charge. We get asked on prices all the time. Our shop in particular, we work in time blocks, half day, full day. Smaller stuff we can figure out too. We try to have a baseline price, and we only charge for the time that we're tattooing. Sometimes there's drawings done beforehand. Often those are included in the overall price of the tattoo. Some shops will look at an actual size of a tattoo. This has been customary, doesn't mean it's always true, where about the size of the fist or the size of the inside of your palm be about 250 bucks. Kind of a loose example of how they do it. So if you had two fists put down on an image, could be anywhere between 250 or 500 since there's two fists. If it's a larger piece and it requires multiple sessions, it's going to be very hard for somebody to give a very accurate price. So often they give estimates. People choose to change the design, so obviously it's an estimate. The actual price of the tattoo starts to change as they start to change designs. We found just blocking off time makes it really consistent for us as artists not to overshoot and not to undershoot. If we get done sooner, we'll charge you less. But generally, we try to work into 3 or 6 hour increments at this particular shop. I don't have a problem with somebody charging 200 an hour, and I don't have a problem with somebody charging 100 an hour. I think we have to look at where they're located. Is the shop in a city that it's just not feasible to charge that much? Then that's the going rate in that area. So it could change from town to town. I've noticed it change from state to state and country to country. So whatever is the kind of benchmark going rate in that town is what you're probably going to expect. If an artist charges a little bit more, his work could be worth it. If they're charging less, maybe that person just doesn't value what they're doing as much, or they're charging less because they just really enjoy tattooing and wish they could do it on everybody for free, which is fine. Some artists work extremely quick and efficient, and they might charge more because the size of the piece that they're able to get done is way bigger than somebody else who works extremely slow. So trying to get an estimate from an artist can be hard sometimes. If I were to see somebody who paid $200 for an hour and for a tattoo, and the tattoo wasn't good, I would want to look at what else that artist did. I'd ask the client, do you have any other sessions that you're supposed to get the rest finished up? Maybe they have a whole nother session that's dialing it in, and that's the type of artist that they are. If it's a $100 tattoo or $100 an hour tattoo and it's not good, well, you kind of got what you paid for, and that's where the difference comes in. I think there's quite a few other artists that block out their days. Some do it just for about 2 hours at a time, and they'll have you booked, I guess, every Tuesday, or they'll have you booked the first Tuesday of the month, and that way they have the consistency with the client. They know what to expect every month. Their payment's always the same, and no matter what they get done, it's a 2-hour sitting. I know a few people that have all day because they enjoy working on larger pieces. They may not see the client as often, but they have a big chunk that they work on one project. And for the artist, I think it makes a nice rhythm for them, so they're not scatterbrained. So when it comes time to focus on your tattoo in particular, they're ready. They know at such and such time and date that they're gonna have to focus for 6 hours, and the predictability in that's awesome. So it depends on the type of work that they like to do. I think there's a few. I think there's also a few that don't don't subscribe to that method because they just get such random stuff all the time, and that could be fun for that artist. So it's based on the artist, I think, not the market. I think off the bat that they instantly know what they're going to be spending. So if somebody tattoos either in a 3 or 6 hour block, they have a set price for both the 3 hour and the 6 hour block. Sometimes they give you a break if you're going to sit for longer, for 6 hours. Again, so the artist knows what they're getting into and how much focus they need that day. So it's very upfront if they're doing it in a block thing, in a block method. There's no, I guess what they would call like carny trickery. They're not going to switch it on you at the end. You're straightforward, you communicate, and then the person can go, wait, that might be too expensive for me right now. I'm going to have to save up. So it's not a bad thing. We're not trying to get everybody in right away. We understand that they're pretty costly, but I like that communication. I think it's good. I have an example of a person that I'm working on that she had a tattoo. She has multiple tattoos on her back and none of them are connected, and she wants to have some connectivity. Some of them have to be covered up, some of them need to be reworked, and then there's also new material that's getting put onto her back. She books for long sessions. We get as much done as we can each session. I also leave it up to her to tell me what's the most important thing she wants done, and then I work towards it. Could I spend multiple hours in her back fixing the old stuff, really trying to cover up the other stuff? Yes. But she has a certain amount of acceptance that she wants, and she doesn't want to spend an ungodly amount of money, which could easily happen. So our block method is really easy because she knows exactly what she's going to pay that day, and she can understand what we're going to get done, and she can tell me if she wants to change it or maybe even shorten the day. So it gives her a lot more freedom, and it's so much easier for me to work with her. One of the things we do, since a lot of the artists that we have at this shop, they draw often and they have to be incredibly creative in what they do, so it takes a lot of time. We really value the people that I work with, if you want to say they work for me, or some people would call them employees, they're just my fellow artists. We really value their time, so we take half deposits. And since we're straightforward on the time that somebody can be sitting, whether it's 3 hours or 6 hours, we take a half deposit for that time frame. That way we know the person getting the tattoo is very committed. They're not just, oh, it's $50 and then let it burn and not show up for the appointment, and then our artist is out all that time and effort, and it really gets to them when they have an appointment that doesn't show or does a no call and screws around with their time. So our half deposits, although they're hefty, they're assurances from both ends. You've given us a substantial amount of money to do the tattoo, the deposit, and we value that money that's coming from you, and you're valuing our time that it takes to come up with the drawing or come up with the concept for you. So we do that. If we're a different type of shop and we had a lot of small tattoos coming in all the time that didn't require this customization, then we might just take a $50 or $100 tattoo. It works. People do it all the time. It works for a shop. I would highly suggest to any tattoo artist out there, take deposits, even from friends, because they seem to be the ones that want to burn you the most. So we do half deposits, and we find that we have a very good retention, and the client feels really strong knowing that they put that in our hands, and we end up coming out with some amazing work for them. It makes sense. If you can find artists that have all the same quality of work and one's a little bit cheaper than the other, great. I ask people all the time, I think our rates are very comparable to those that are doing a high standard of tattooing. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, hey, go talk to another artist. If you vibe with them more than I do, or more than you do with me or one of the artists that work here, go for it. You're sitting down for a while. You want somebody you trust and somebody you can interact with. So let's say if we do charge more than some shops, it's very possible. You're also getting not only an incredible execution on the tattoo, but you're getting an ability to relate to somebody who will listen to your story or who hears your idea and really wants to take it further and develop it. So I go, that's an added value, not just to the visual of the finished tattoo, but the whole experience and what you're going through. So price shopping, my grandpa used to say there's an ass for every seat. So some people want the cheaper tattoo just to have the goofy, fun experience. Awesome. We don't do that here. We value our time. We value your time. We want to make it the best experience we can. And we want to come up with some really on the edge, avant-garde style of artwork that happens to be a tattoo. I don't want to give away the secret, but it's pretty epic here. Like, it's dope. I love being outside because I spend so much time at work, putting time into my drawings, sitting under fluorescent lights. I needed something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum of what I do on a day-to-day basis. And that for me was being outside under the sun, running around in the mountains. Just every day is completely new. And this shop is located at the base of just an incredible array of mountains, the Wasatch Front. And it makes me really happy to go to work when I can turn around and see those mountains. So I chose here. I thought this place was a new emerging city. I always thought it would have been cool to grow up in the 60s and be in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco and see, I don't know, the hippie movement coming about. I thought that was cool. I also thought Soho, Greenwich Village in the late 70s, early 80s, punk rock was emerging, hip hop was coming out. I thought that would just be an epic place to be. There's current cities now like Portland, Denver, Seattle not too long ago that were these really awesome emerging cities. And I know I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but I think Salt Lake City is really on something new here. And having visited for over 5 years prior to moving here, I watched it change and I just really wanted to be a part of it. And I thought that me and my family brought something to Salt Lake City to, I don't know, just help make it even more amazing. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I wanted to do the shop where I did it in a really awesome little town of Mill Creek. And we've just gotten nothing but positive reviews from everybody that lives around here and anybody that's come into the shop or even traveled to come see us. They really like the vibe. And I think because of the city, because of the area, being at the mountains, it all sets itself up for something really cool that people need to come and check out. Because we take appointments, it just helps for our schedule. It just helps to stay organized. Do we take walk-ins? Yes. I would love to do walk-ins every day. I find it so much fun. I enjoy all the new clients and all the new personalities that come through. We just can't. I have these pieces that take a bit of time for just research. I'm just like Googling or using Pinterest, and we'll talk about Pinterest later, but I'm looking up things all the time. I'm going into actually my hardbound and soft cover books, looking up old images from different artists, bringing in styles wherever I can that maybe the person talking to me, the client, didn't know that they wanted it to begin with. And then I all of a sudden introduce them to something and they fall in love with it, and then we emulate some of that into their tattoo, and it's awesome. So I don't want people to think that because we're almost appointment only, I don't want them to think that they can't get tattooed. We're not so far stretched out. I keep my schedule fairly loose so that sometimes I can get smaller tattoos in there. We have an array of guest artists that come through, and they love walk-ins too. They've got appointments when they come out, but for them to come to a whole new city and work in this shop to meet you, the new client that wants to get the small tattoo, they love it. So I don't want people to be afraid of that, and I don't want them to think that there's a hierarchy. Like if you've got an appointment, that means that shop's better than somebody that does walk-ins. To me, they're both awesome, and I really enjoy both aspects. We just happen to fall on the side of appointments. So different shops have different minimums. We have a higher one than some. I feel that it's pretty average across the board here. It does change as rent increases, as gas prices increase, as groceries increase, what we have to charge increases as well. So a minimum is just something that we do to set the standard of what it takes for us to open up needles, to do a setup, and to get fully invested into the tattoo. We don't do a low minimum because we just really value the client and their money, and those that want to spend a higher minimum on a smaller tattoo, I just think you get more from it. So if you generally only want to spend a little bit of money, your interaction might be a little bit less. You may not remember that tattoo artist's name. I know a lot of people, when I ask them about some of their smaller tattoos, they're like, I don't remember his name. They're like, I think he has tattoos and maybe a beard. That could be any of us. Even if it was a chick, I don't know. So we tend to have a little bit higher of a minimum, maybe to scare some tire kickers away so that they don't get tattooed. And maybe it's to keep out the riffraff. I don't know. We just chose to do it, and we absolutely love every single one of you that come through and get tattooed. Freehand tattooing isn't where you just sit down with a blank forearm and all of a sudden the artist just goes. Can they? Yeah. Doesn't always work like that. To my best definition of freehand is where the artist talks with the client, they come up with a concept, the artist starts drawing on the skin, whether it's pen, Sharpie marker, whatever. Sometimes they might use a little bit of stencil. Sometimes they freehand the background. If you got a tattoo that was stenciled and a friend got one that's freehand, it doesn't mean because he got it freehand that it's better. It's just that artist chose to do that. They really enjoy it and they like it more. So just because your artist says he's going to do everything freehand doesn't always mean that it's the best result. I generally really enjoy doing freehand for certain pieces. There's other ones I will not do, and I'll make a stencil for it. But I know the difference, and I don't want somebody to take too much pride in the fact that their artist did freehand while making fun of somebody else's that wasn't. Again, it's neutral, not a big deal. It's all the artist is the one that really makes that choice. And if it's that style that they do a lot, trust them.